Next on Newsmax Prime, law enforcement floods the Washington Navy Yard during a lockdown there this morning, but later authorities issue the all clear. With a terror alert issued for the upcoming Independence Day weekend, is that threat clear to most Americans? We'll discuss. Plus, Dick Morris on Chris Christie and Donald Trump on others running for the GOP nomination. Newsmax Prime for Thursday, July 2nd starts now. Good evening and welcome to this Thursday edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Among the stories of prime interest tonight, Donald Trump remains in the headlines. And in tonight's portion of my one-on-one interview, you'll hear his candid assessment of others in the GOP presidential field. That's coming up a little later. But first, a nation on edge with concerns of ISIS-inspired attacks. The Navy Yard in Washington on lockdown earlier today after reports of a shooter, but that situation ended without incident and the all clear was given. Security experts warn we need to stay vigilant across our nation because of the mass appeal of ISIS among its supporters.
You're looking for a needle in a haystack, but the ISIS factor with the use of social media just makes the haystack that much bigger. When you're mass marketing the idea of calling on a terrorist attack as opposed to dealing with small groups of people, that threat goes up.
So there's a lot of people out there who are seeing themselves as aligned with ISIS, number one. And then number two, you have this ISIS call to arms during Ramadan. We are right in the middle of Ramadan. Call to arms, conduct attacks against our enemies.
I'm pleased to be joined here at the anchor desk by Miranda Kahn. And Miranda, for more on the story, let's bring in former New York Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik. Bernie, of course, also the author of the book, From Jailer to Jailed. Bernie, welcome to Newsmax Prime. So here we are.
Thank you, JD.
It is so good to have you, sir. And here we are headed into the Independence Day weekend. Are today's events, specifically this morning what happened in Washington, a prelude of what we might expect this weekend?
Well, look, the threat level is high. By all accounts, the chatter, the online chatter, the recruitment by ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other radical extremist groups, it's extremely heavy right now. They're calling for attacks against their enemies. We are one of their prime enemies, in their eyes at least. So at this point, we have to remain vigilant. I think what we saw this morning was a response to that vigilance. I was a bit concerned this morning. This was an unconfirmed 911 call. We had a massive response. We got to make sure that things like this don't result in a massive response and then they create a diversion to go somewhere else. You know, you look at history and what they're doing in the Middle East, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. They create an attack in one place, everybody responds, and then they either detonate a second attack there or they go somewhere else and do it somewhere else. So we've got to be prepared for multiple attacks, and we have to be prepared for the threats that we face. And I think those threats are pretty substantial right now.
Bernie, with that in mind, do you think that we're being too reactive instead of proactive?
You know what, Miranda? It's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. The reality is we have to be prepared to respond. We have to be preemptive, proactive. We have to be excellent at the crisis response. Because if we're not, say that active shooter scenario this morning was live and real. We've got to be prepared to defend that premise, the facility, and get those people out of there and rescue and recover. So we've got to be prepared. The bottom line is we never know where it's going to happen. Could happen anywhere in that naval yard, a tourist location, a transportation hub. You have to look at what these people are doing abroad because they could do it here.
Bernie, we're going to call on your knowledge and your vast resume, including your time as the interim interior minister in Iraq. As a story on our website, Newsmax.com, says doubts are growing about the effectiveness and the sustainability of the Obama administration's light footprint strategy against global extremist movements. Do you agree with that concern, the light footprint and the, quote, leading from behind?
Well, I definitely don't believe in leading from behind, and I don't have all the details that some in the intelligence community do have, but I do know that the Kurds are dying for more equipment. They're looking for heavier equipment. They're not getting it. They're not able to fight the fight they want to fight. They need to fight off the enemy in the north. Airstrikes alone, they're not going to get it. I think we have to have Arab partners. I think we have to engage with the King of Jordan, the President of Egypt. We have to have the Arabs lead this coalition if possible, but they need our support. They need equipment. They need resources. And I don't think we're giving them what we need.
But aren't you concerned that some of that equipment could end up in the wrong hands?
Well, that's always a possibility, Miranda, but when you're dealing with the King of Jordan and you're dealing with the President of Egypt, giving them the equipment, they're going to use the equipment. These are two guys specifically that are completely anti-extremism. They know the enemy. They know the language. They have the intelligence capability. They have boots on the ground, except they don't have the equipment they need. So we're either going to give it to them and trust that they can help get the job done, or we don't give it to them and the place implodes, which it looks like that's what's happening.
Bernie, let's come back stateside, specifically to the upcoming Independence Day holiday and ISIS and the FBI. Now, earlier this week, the FBI announced that it would be setting up command centers around the country to prepare for possible terror attacks on the 4th of July holiday weekend. But ISIS tweeted a map with the location of each of those FBI command centers. There was some thought that the FBI publicized this about really as a deterrent, but is ISIS engaged in psychological operations, or did the FBI give out too much information about what their plans were this weekend?
Well, you know what, JD, sometimes I think we do give out too much information and tell the world, the public, the press, tell them what we're doing when we shouldn't. I can't say that's the case. I'm sure the FBI took this into consideration. Nobody knows better than the director of the FBI, Mr. Comey. He knows this enemy. He understands it. He's talked about it for months now, what we need to be doing to fight them and the threats we face. So I'm sure they took this into consideration when they put it out. But keep in mind, ISIS uses social media to send out propaganda, to recruit, to instigate, and call for lone wolf attacks. So that may be part of their strategy.
Bernie, the country, as we mentioned, is on high alert as law enforcement officials monitor potential threats, and many of us in America may be apprehensive about the upcoming holiday. But take a listen to what Congresswoman Martha McSally, a member of the Homeland Security Committee, had to say about this.
We, as Americans, we need to be vigilant, be on the alert, but have your 4th of July activities. Go to those parades, go to the activities. Just be paying attention to your surroundings. If you see something, say something, but the worst thing that we could do is stay home. We really need to give these terrorists the, proverbial middle finger and show them, you know what, this is what America is about.
So, Bernie, do you agree? Is that the type of attitude we should have?
I could not agree more. In the aftermath of 9/11, we suffered the greatest, most substantial terror attack in world history. But if you recall, me and Mayor Giuliani, the fire commissioner, Governor Pataki, we were out there pushing for people, go on vacation, get out in public, visit the city, let these people know we're not going to be deterred. We're not going to cower to their threats. And I think that's extremely important because if we do, they win and we lose our liberties. And that's not going to be the case.
All righty, a good spot to end it. Bernie Kerik, we thank you for your time. The name of Bernie's book again, From Jailer to Jailed. Now, about last night, wanted to take a minute and apologize for some technical woes that prevented you from seeing our program on the internet and on Hulu. Technically speaking, there was an outage at the hub that streams video to our website. We share your frustration that our program was not readily available, especially a segment from that interview with Donald Trump. And based on your emails, it's clear you were disappointed too. Now, if there's a part of the program you've missed, there's an easy way to check it out. Go to NewsmaxTV.com, click on our archives, which are there, right on the right side, Newsmax Prime. That's where you'll find it.